Throughout the Bible, God continually called his people to times of remembering, times of recalling, times of reflecting his moving in their lives. On this fourth Sunday, we come together as a community of servants from various walks of life to celebrate what the Lord has done. Community leaders, political persons, educators, social activities, entrepreneurs, government officials, persons of medicine, law, skilled workers, performing artists, and professionals are all called together to make expressions to the church family and to give some flesh and blood models so both the young and the old can view tangible progress. The Word of God said, remember the Lord your God, for it is he who gives you the ability to produce wealth and so confirms his covenant, which he swore to your ancestors as it is today. We will hear now from our youth as they present others who have heard and answered the call of God.
Again, our youth today will celebrate our history. I want you to look to the left at the person next to you and look to the person at your right. You're looking at history. You are Black history. And so today, we celebrate you and all of these people who are in the political realm today that we celebrate. They have done something in our communities to make our communities a better place. And so we celebrate them for going in the trenches and being willing to do the hard work that must be done to bind us together, to celebrate who we are, to make us better people for now and in the future. Today, our first person, I am Javita Bell.
Elected in November 2014 to my 13th term in the U.S. House of Representatives with more than 70% of the votes in the 43rd Congress District of California. I represent a large part of South Central Los Angeles. I serve as the ranking member of the House Committee on Finance Services, a member of Congress Democratic leadership, as a member of the Steering and Political Committee. Throughout my 37 years of public service, I have been on the cutting edge, tackling difficult issues. I combine my strong legislative and political publicity and high visual and Democratic Party activities with a usual activity to do grassroots organization. I continue to be an active leader in the board of representative environmental activities and elected. I'm the co-founder of Black Women Formal, a non-profit organization of over 1,200 African American women in Los Angeles. In the mid-'80s, I also found Project Building, working with young people in Los Angeles, homing, developing on job training and placement. Throughout my career, I have been internationally peace, justice, and human rights. Before my election to Congress, I was a leader in the movement to end apartheid in South Africa. I am the founding member and former chairperson of the Out of Iran, which was formed in June 2005. I was born in St. Louis, Missouri, the fifth of 13 children raised by a single mother. I am Maxine Moore Waters. I'm the U.S. Representative for California, 43rd District, and was previously the 35th and 29th. I've been serving since 1991.
I am one of the big six leaders of the civil rights movement in the 1960s. I have continued to fight for the people's rights since joining the Congress in 1987. I was born near Troy, Alabama on February 21st, 1940. I grew up in the era of segregation. I was inspired by Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. I joined the burgeoning civil rights movement. I was a freedom rider, and I spoke at 1963's March on Washington and led the demonstration that became known as Bloody Sunday. I was elected to Congress in 1986 and received the Presidential Medal of Freedom in 2011. I was born outside of Troy, Alabama on February 24th, 1940. I had a happy childhood, though I needed to work hard to assist my sharecropper parents. I chafed against the unfairness of segregation. I was particularly disappointed when the Supreme Court ruling of 1954's Brown versus the Board of Education of Topeka didn't affect my school life. However, hearing Dr. Martin Luther King Jr.'s sermons and the news of the 1955 and 1956 bus boycott, this inspired me to act for the changes I wanted to see. In 1957, I left Alabama to attend the American Baptist Theological Seminary in Nashville, Tennessee. There, I learned about nonviolent protests, which helped organize sit-ins at segregated lunch counters. I was arrested during these demonstrations, which upset my mother, but I was committed to the civil rights movement and went on to participate in the Freedom Rides of 1961. Freedom Riders challenged the segregated facilities. To bring attention to not being able to vote in the South, I and Hosea Williams led a march from Selma, Alabama on March 7, 1965. After crossing once more, I suffered a fractured skull. The violent attacks were recorded and disseminated throughout the country. The images proved too powerful to ignore. Bloody Sunday, as the day was labeled, sped up the passage of 1965's Voting Rights Act. After Barack Obama won the presidency in 2008, I stated that when we were organizing voter registration drives, going on the freedom rides, sitting in, coming here to Washington for the first time, getting arrested, going to jail, being beaten, I never dreamed of the possibility that an African American would one day be elected president of the United States. I am John Lewis. I am Black History.
Diplomat, 1964. I am a U.S. cabinet member with the Obama administration who is the country's ambassador to the United Nations. I was born on November 17, 1964 in Washington, D.C. I went on to study at Stanford University and the University of Oxford in Oxfordshire with a focus on international affairs. In 2009, I joined President Obama's cabinet, receiving Senate confirmation to be UN ambassador. In 2013, I was appointed National Security Advisor by Obama. I attended National Cathedral School, a prep academy in Washington, D.C. I excelled in academics, becoming my class valedictorian, and showed my aptitude in the politic realm as president of the student council. I also love athletics, competing in 3 different sports, and became a star point guard of the national basketball team. After graduating, I attended Stanford University in Palo Alto, California. In college, I pushed myself to excel. I not only earned departmental honors and university distinction, but also became a Harry S. Truman Scholar, was elected to Phi Beta Kappa, and earned a Rhodes Scholarship. After receiving a bachelor's degree in history in 1986. I went on to attend University of Oxford in Oxfordshire, England. I began work as the Director of International Organizations and Peacekeeping for the NSC, where I had what I call my most searing experience when I visited Rwanda during what was later classified as a genocide. I took lessons learned from my peacekeeping positions to a new post as Special Assistant to the President and Senior Director for African Affairs in 1995. I left the public sector in 2002 to become a Senior Fellow in Foreign Policy for the Brookings Institute, a nonprofit public policy organization based in Washington, D.C. I took leave from Brookings in 2008 to become the Senior Foreign Policy Advisor to Barack Obama during his presidential campaign. After Obama's successful election in November of 2008, I was nominated to be the UN Ambassador for the United States. On January 22, 2009, I was confirmed by the U.S. Senate, making me the first African American woman to be America's Ambassador of the UN. I am Susan Rice.
I was born in Brooklyn, New York in 1924. I was the first Black Congresswoman for the State Representative of New York in the U.S. House of Representatives for 7 terms. In 1972, I ran for the Democratic nomination for presidency and became the first major party African American to do so. I am Shirley Chisholm. I am Black History.
For those of you who don't know, I was an activist for the Civil Rights Movement. I became a member of Congress, Mayor of Atlanta, and U.S. Ambassador to the United Nations. I was born on March 12, 1932, in New Orleans, Louisiana, and became active in the Civil Rights Movement, working with Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. in the Southern Christian Leadership Conference. Entering politics, I served in Congress and was the first African American ambassador to the United Nations and became mayor of Atlanta. In 1981, I was awarded the Presidential Medal of Freedom. Upon graduating from Howard University, I chose to study at Connecticut's Hartford Theological Seminary. In 1955, I became an ordained minister. Working as a pastor in Georgia, I first became part of the Civil Rights Movement when I organized voter registration drives. I moved to New York City to work with the National Council of Churches in 1957, then returned to Georgia in 1961 to help lead the citizenship schools that tutored African Americans in literacy, organizing, and leadership skills. Though the schools were a success, I sometimes had trouble connecting with the rural students in the program. In 1964, I became the SCLC's executive director. While in this position, I helped draw up the Civil Rights Act of 1964 and the Voting Rights Act of 1965. I was with King in Memphis, Tennessee on April 4th, 1968, the unfortunate day of King's assassination. Following King's death, I became executive vice president of the SCLC. In 1970, I left the SCLC to make a run for Congress, but was defeated at the polls. 2 years later, I ran again, and this time I was elected to the House of Representatives. I was the first African American to represent Georgia in Congress since Reconstruction. In my time as a legislator, I supported programs for poor, educational initiatives, and human rights. I left my seat in Congress to take the position. While ambassador, I advocated for human rights on a global scale, such as sanctions to oppose rule by apartheid in South Africa. In 1979, I had to resign my ambassadorship, as I had met in secret with Zaidi Labib Terzi, the Palestinian Liberation Organization's UN observer. The resignation did not keep me from being elected as Atlanta's mayor in 1981. After 2 terms as mayor, I failed in my attempt to secure the Democratic nomination to run for governor of Georgia. You may ask who I am. I am Andrew Jackson Young Jr. I am Black History.
Again, thank you for our young people for taking the time to learn about the history that affects them, the history that affects you, the history that affects all of us. Again, thank you for celebrating African American History Month with our youth today. Thank you.